And welcome everyone. So far in international relations theory, in the perspective of IO, we have covered till realism. Now it's time to go for liberalism, Marxism, and the theories of integration, functionalism, neo-functionalism in this lecture. Now going to the talking about liberalism. So what is the idea of liberalism? Liberalism talks about uh, free market economy, basically emphasize on individual. Okay. So, in the context of liberalism, international organization is always perceived in a positive way, that it is a tool. Liberalism recognizes IO as a tool to promote global cooperation, peace, stability. It is totally different from realism because it emphasizes more on the cooperation part of thing rather than just talking only about self-interest. Okay. And when it talks about cooperation, okay, all the way, it removes the anarchic nature, sorry, it mitigate all the repercussions that occurs through the anarchic nature of the state or the international system, all the problems that anarchic world system face without any government, any supranational authority. It helps to overcome, this perspective helps to overcome all those issues. Then, according to liberal theory, IO fosters independence, facilitate the better communication, help state achieving the common goals. The way how liberalism views IO is that cooperation in an anarchic world, like reducing anarchy. Realism and liberalism both recognizes international system as an anarchic world, like without central authority. And liberals says that IO helps to reduce those problems. And IO establish rule and norms to guide the state behavior in order to foster all these trust and overcome all the uncertainties between the states. Cooperation in an anarchic world can also be done by shared interest. Liberalism believes that two nation states, in the context of security, trade, human rights, environmental challenges, may have the shared interest, may have the things to do which will help them together to grow and develop in a positive way. So, IOs provide a platform to the state to identify and pursue the shared interest through cooperation rather than conflict. Then, talking about promotion of interdependence, it promotes interdependence in the sense of economic interdependence. Like IOs, we can say that World Trade Organization, IMF, and all these Bretton Woods institution promote an economic interdependence by regulating the trade, fostering the financial stability, provides the grants and aid, financial assistance to those country. Liberal argue for this help and interconnectedness among different nation states. Functional cooperation, it also facilitates the functional cooperations like health, communication, environment. For example, World Health Organization is one of the United Nation agencies, specialized agencies, which coordinate as a international response to pandemics and take care of the health and well-being of the citizens of the pan world. Okay, now facilitating the collective security. According to liberalist perspective, it talks also about, I also talks about the collective security. A particular making up of a body which help to prevent the conflicts among the different nation state which will accelerate into the war. Collective security liberalism supports this particular idea of collective security, where IOs will work work for their mutual for the mutual protection of each one of state who are the member of that particular IO. For example, you can say NATO, Warsaw Pact, like all those states which are present and member of NATO. Okay, whosoever among them gets harmed by any, or any conflict arises, or anything arises, any casualty arises over there, then all the member states will think that particular losses in the group, so they all will understand and take all the way stand for that particular the particular member state. Then rule based international order. Rule based international order is that establishing of norms and rule which is very very crucial to enforce certain international rules and norms which will govern the state behavior, like trade, security, human rights. WTO is one of the institution likewise which enforces the rules for the international trades, reducing the risk of the trade wars, economic clashes, and that deals very peacefully. Then legal accountability, International Court of Justice or International Criminal Court, which enforces the international law and provide the legal mechanism to resolve all the disputes that is held by the different uh, nation states. Okay, for the accountability of a violation of certain international norms. Then enhancing the communication and reducing the mistrust. It Liberal perspective also talks about that being transparent and information sharing is very very crucial part, which is played by IO. It just not it just overcomes the mistrust, miscommunication, and all these things can lead to a conflict. So directly or indirectly, it also prevents the conflict. Monitoring and compliances, like International Atomic Energy Agency monitors the compliance with the nuclear proliferation treaties, and UN peacekeepers monitors these conflict related agreements, and uh, allows the ceasefire whenever it is necessary. Now, promoting democracy and human rights, especially the United Nations Human Rights Council and UNICEF kind of special agencies, promotes the democracy, they protect the human rights, promote the democratic essence, support humanitarian efforts. Democratic peace theory, which you might have known about, like given by Michael Doyle, okay, which argues that democracies are very less, are likely less to go with the war. Okay, and democracy is best part of the liberalism. Okay, so IO is like the community of democracy where each member state have their say. So this is also one of the tool to exercise. IO is also one of the tool, according to liberalism, is a tool to promote the democratic governance. Then facilitating the global governance. How it does that? By managing global challenges like UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Paris Agreement. This is the global challenge. The climate challenge is the global challenge, which is mitigated by these kinds of agreements. Okay. Then multilateralism. Multilateralism is the idea where any international problems or anything which is not addressed by just one particular state, but each of the state, like many states, many countries work together to counter the issue, like WHO, World Bank, all this. Reducing transaction cost. When we work with cooperation and mutual understanding, okay, that particular supported by essence of liberalism, then it also reduces the transaction cost. Our cost cutting happens, and the cost cutting will definitely lead to the efficient working, efficient problem solving. So this is how it works. Pooling resources, pool resource to global issue. For instance, World Bank and International Monetary Fund provide financial support to those who faces the economic crisis. Okay, help them stabilize, means they have a trusteeship in certain particular kind of mm, great powers which will help them to revive. Okay, now providing then providing public goods. Public goods is that a global public good, that is clean air for all, security for all, disease control for security is also a public good. That the Organization of Security for Security Cooperation in Europe established to contribute the provision of international security, which means to make peaceful world and peaceful change through international laws. Okay, like peaceful dispute resolution, guided by ICJ, International Court of Justice, World Trade Organization, so that each one of them get their due share uh, in world trade and perform every trade with the legal mechanism without having any kind of dispute. And if even if dispute arises, it will be resorted soon. Then legal framework for international behavior. Peaceful changes to international law can also be done with the legal framework for international behavior, as IOs contribute to the develop of the international laws by establishing the legal norms and frameworks for to govern the state behavior, like Kyoto Protocol on climate change and non-nuclear non-proliferation treaty. All this, the conclusion of this. The conclusion on this, that international organizations play a fundamental role in promoting cooperation, reducing conflict, and fostering the independence among the state. And unlike realism, IO is very powerful tool for the state. Liberalism emphasize that their independent role is very much good for shaping the international relation and facilitating the peaceful and mutually beneficial benefit to each of the states. Okay, so this is how it goes. Now we will come to Marxism. Okay, Marxism is like Marxism. Marxism is like, it talks about the class war. It talks about the haves or have not. It talks about the alienation of the laborers. It talks about the capitalist economy. It criticizes it and says that capitalism, in the capitalist society, the people who are very rich, belonging to the bourgeois class, they have control over the resources. The state works as the apparatus to exploit the laborer, proletariat. So, Marxist theory interprets international relation primarily through the lens of economic and class structures, focusing on the globalist capitalist system and how it perpetuates the inequality all the way. According to Marx, IO are the tool of global capitalism serving the interest of the dominant class. Means similarly as it criticizes states as the apparatus in the hands of the capitalist class. Okay, in the same way, they say that IO is also one of the tool which works in the favor of the capitalist class. Okay, while marginalize the interest of the poor and developing country and working class population. So now we'll see that how Marxism views of IOs. IOs are an instrument of global capitalism. Okay, basically it serves the interest of bourgeois. Okay, from Marxist perspective, IO is the primarily designed to save the interest of global capitalist class, like World Bank, IMF, WTO. All are the institution which reinforce the global capitalist exploitation by promoting the schemes and policy that benefit the multinational companies corporation which is owned by capitalist class at the expense of the working class, especially global south countries. The structural power of capitalism, also Marxism argue that the economic structure of capitalism determines the function of IO. Now, imperialism and the role of IO, which can be seen in the context of neo-imperialism and maintaining the economic hegemony. Like IO is often viewed by the Marxism as an instrument of neo-imperialism, where wealthy countries, primarily the Western powers, exploit the developing countries or the developed country through the indirect means of rather than direct colonization. Okay, which used to happen in the time of mercantilism or something. Okay, now maintaining the economic hegemony, like IOs are seen as particular economic hegemony of the advanced capitalist state like US and Western allies having the organization like World Bank and IMF. So they are already dominant because these particular buildings are in their countries. Their policy often reflect the interest of the capitalist economy rather than ensuring the global economic system. Okay, then global class structure and exploitation, the core periphery relation, okay, given by Emmanuel Wallerstein and Andrew Goodif Frank also talked about this develop underdeveloped theory, dependency theory. Okay, sorry. So this is the IOs is a mechanism that that sustain the dominance of the core, the wealthiest capitalist nation, over the periphery or the semi-periphery. Semi-periphery is added by like in the in between both. It's like developing kind of nation given by Emmanuel Wallstein in 1970 around. Now global exploitation also, according to Marxist thinker, IO reinforces a system of global exploitation where wealth produced in the developing countries extracted and accumulated in the developed country. For example, trade policy promoted by WTO may push developing countries to open their markets to foreign competition, which can undermine the vocal for local kind of thing, local industries in the countries of developing and the underdeveloped nations. Then IOs and economic equality. According to Marxism, IO is responsible or IOs also play a greater role in performing the economic inequalities like exacerbating global inequality and debt and economic control. Okay, so this is how. And then hegemony of the capitalist ideology by promoting the neoliberalism that emphasizes on free markets, deregulation, privatization, reduced role. So all this will do that state will be backed. Okay, and all these things will be held by a private company, and those private companies are owned by capitalist class. And then again it will just uh, dismantle the suitable share of the resources that is to be distributed by every class, that is to be distributed to the every class. Okay, then cultural imperialism, that IOs are sometimes also promoting the Western culture more of, because they are hegemon, they are powerful, they dominate their for example, United Nations and other Western dominated IOs often push their Western style democracy and just negates all the different kind of government regimes. So this also have a cultural imperialism. and IOs and state apparatus that I told about, global superstructure like institutional laws, culture shaped by the economic base, that is mode of production, and IO also work in the same way. Okay, class collaboration, all this. So this is the way it works. IOs and the revolutionary movement by suppressing the revolutionary movement, which we can say in United Nation and World Bank. Okay, then containment of the socialism, that state role should be minimized, and all will be taken over by the global capitalism, and this is promoted by Bretton Woods institutions also, and all the way global governance and hegemony, G20, World Economic Forum, all these criticized the Marxism. Okay, for instance, these gathering where the global capitalist elites coordinate and make their strategy and exclude all those marginalized and oppressed classes in the underdeveloped and the developing countries. A democratic deficit in IOs. So, in conclusion, we can say that Marxist theory, international organization are fundamentally the instrument of the global capitalism that perpetuates the class exploitation and economic inequalities on the global case, rather than being neutral and benevolent to all the different global south and underdeveloping countries and all these. They are the tools of neo-imperialism, maintaining an unequal global distribution and benefits to the bourgeoisie at the expense of the proletariat, who are laborer class. Okay, Marxists advocate the radical restructuring of the international system to replace such capitalist international organization with the institution that serves the working class and promotes the socialist value. Okay, so this is how, and the next, the theories of integration will we'll see in the next lecture.